Hello and welcome to another installment of the Paytrace ISV Spotlight. In this episode, we're going to be talking a lot about surcharging with our new partner InterPayments and introduce their great solution to your merchants. You're going to learn what surcharging is, how it differentiates from other surcharging solutions in the market, and how we can bring value to the merchants by offsetting some of their credit card fees. There's jam-packed information in this video, so watch it all. And like and subscribe to our channel here if you want some more payments content. Now, let's get to the video. Welcome to this ISV Spotlight. My name is Sam Johnson. I will be your sales trainer / host today. Joining me is our partner InterPayments, led by their VP of Partnerships, Suzanne Vandenberg. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you.
And then later on, we're going to have a special guest appearance from their sales director, Devin Foster, is going to be joining us to do a little bit of a demo on the solution. So really excited to hear from both of you. For those of you that haven't been on these ISV Spotlights before, I'm just going to give a quick kind of what to expect over the next half hour, 45 minutes. ISV Spotlights are really your resource into getting to know a little bit more about some of our partners that we work with that have some really great software solutions and integrations that can add and enhance some of the technologies that your merchants can consume. These are, like I just said, about half an hour all the way up to a full hour. And this is your opportunity to be interactive with some of our partners. So as we go through this presentation, if you have questions, comments, or emotional outbursts, please open up the Q&A box. Send us those questions. We'll take probably, I don't know, we'll carve out maybe like 10 minutes at the end of this, depending on how many questions that we have, and make sure that you are comfortable and leave today with some more tools in your tool belt. So if that sounds good, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to our honored guest, Suzanne. If you want to maybe do a quick introduction on, who are you? Who is InterPayments? I know we've had you on before, but for some folks that are newer, love to hear a little bit of background and what to expect over the remainder of this call.
Yeah, no, thanks for having us, Sam. I think we did an ISV Spotlight about 9 months ago, and I was really in my freshman year at InterPayments, so it's been fun to, have the successes that we've had with our partnership, but also, excited to share some insights with you guys today. So quick background, I'm Suzanne Vandenberg. I head up partnerships here, and I've worked for software for many years in direct sales and partnerships, and, as a founder of a company. And I also have my teammate joining, Devin Foster. He has a ton of knowledge and experience about payments and has been with InterPayments since its inception. So he's going to join and walk us through a quick demo about, midway through the presentation. But I think what I'd like to do is go ahead and share the screen so I can kind of walk through an overview of who we are, share some real life Paytrace customer successes. And then most important, so hang with us through the presentation. It's not going to be super long, but we want to explain how you can make money with surcharging. We have some really good incentives in place for Q3. So, InterPayments is we're a credit card surcharging solution. We operate out of Palo Alto, California, and our mission is simple. We help merchants recover credit card processing fees, and we do that in a compliant manner without disrupting your existing payment process. We focus on the B2B space, and we've enabled merchants to recover hundreds of millions of dollars every year. So, we have really good backing. We work with our investors and advisors from the banking, software, and payment space. And we've been able to establish, as you can see here, some key partnerships and integrations over the past few years. So in addition to our partnership with Paytrace, we've become the integrated surcharging solution for some of the largest banks and bill payment platforms, ERPs, AR automation solutions, you know, in the country.
And I like this slide specifically, Suzanne, because it does add a lot of credibility to what you do. We're, you know, working with some of these very large partners like Epicor and Chase and top 3 US bank, which I can kind of read between the lines based on the color scheme what that might be. But I think it just goes to show that the fact that you are working with a lot of these really credible partners and large businesses and companies really shows, right, that you guys are doing providing a really great technology.
We've come a long way, Sam. So I know there are some pretty significant tailwinds driving surcharging in the market right now. But I still find that it's not that well understood. So I like this slide. It's just a really simple way of, you know, what exactly is surcharging? In essence, surcharging shifts the credit card processing fees to the payer. Merchants can choose to share all or part of those processing fees as they see fit. And you know, it's an easy to implement solution and has an immediate impact on margins. There are alternatives to reducing credit card fees. I think these alternatives, it's the reason why surcharging gets conflated with some of these options in the market. So I like to go through kind of a background just to understand, like, you know, credit card fees are a large and growing cost for a lot of merchants, and there are different ways that you can mitigate them. So, you know, obvious and most, you know, simply, you can raise your prices, right? If you raise your prices to accommodate credit card fees or higher cost payments, you will encourage those higher cost payments rather than having a customer pay with cash or debit or ACH. That's also not the most practical solution for a lot of businesses because there are things like price comparison engines and things called competition. So raising your prices works for some people. It doesn't work for everyone. Cash discounting is really what we run into most frequently. Cash discounting is just the opposite of surcharging. We are increasing the transaction size at the point of sale, and cash discounting decreases the revenue at the point of sale. Service fees, they are really limited to certain MCC codes, so government and educational institutions. That's a smaller segment of the market. So anyone that's not in an approved MCC code in one of those sectors can't really do service fees. The other thing we see frequently is convenience fees, and I don't think we've ever seen them used correctly. They're pretty tricky. It's really just the ability to apply a fee to a very small segment of your revenue. It has to be the non-customary sales channel. So if there's a way that you accept payments and it's not the normal way you accept payments, you can apply a convenience fee in that instance. Surcharging is really, you can apply a surcharge to any credit card payment across any sales channel. So you have the ability to recover up to 4% of the transaction. And we like it because it's transparent to the payer, right? You're passing on only the cost of acceptance to the payer. So you can recover all of your fees associated with processing a transaction, whether it's your gateway fee, your authorization fee, or your processing fee.
I really like this slide, Suzanne, because I kind of like what you said. I hear a lot of mystification in our industry about a lot of these terms. People kind of interchanging the word surcharging and cash discounting or convenience fees, but they are very different things. They're similar, but still very different. And I can maybe speak a little bit just from experience. I originally saw cash discounting as a way for people to kind of circumvent not being able to surcharge when it was still not legal in like half the states, right? But correct me if I'm wrong, surcharging is legal in I think like 48 of the states now, or?
Yeah, surcharging is legal in almost all states. Colorado just went live in July.
Okay.
Kind of some funny rules around Colorado. You can surcharge at a dynamic level in Colorado or at a 2% cap. And we walk you through that and handle whichever option makes the most sense for you. But, Connecticut and Maine are the two states that are left, and sometimes Massachusetts.
Gotcha. And I'm kind of curious with our audience here today. I've actually got a poll here, and I think this poll is working correctly. No, maybe not. Ignore the top answer. Scroll down to number 2. But I'm curious, what I guess alternative programs are you using today, right? As kind of an agent in this space, are you surcharging? Are you cash discounting? I've seen dual pricing kind of picking up steam, which is showing both list prices. Do you use service convenience fees? I'm going to leave that up here for a moment if you guys wouldn't mind just filling those out. Because these are, they're building up in popularity. When I started in the industry, I think 6 years ago, it was pretty much traditional pricing, and surcharging was kind of like this new thing that some people were experimenting with. But now I feel like that's what everybody's talking about. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and close this poll up. Thanks, Suzanne, for letting me kind of take control of that there for a moment.
Yeah, no, this is good. These are good responses. A lot of surcharging.
Yeah, it looks like the majority actually does surcharging versus the other solution. So very interesting.
We've got a bunch of pros on the phone.
That's right. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and end that.
Awesome. Okay. So, credit card fees are rising. Does this poll go away?
You can close out of it. Yeah.
Okay. So credit card fees are rising, right? Simply put, it's impacting margins for companies. This is a Nielsen report, that was published in the Wall Street Journal, and showing that costs are going up, and it has a direct impact on the net margin at companies. So there's a growing concern around this.
So I really like data. Sorry to interrupt, Suzanne, but I am curious, with this kind of constant growth that you see year over year, do you know what's driving this increase?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And, when I referred to the tailwinds behind surcharging, it really is driven by 3 things. There's an increasing use of credit cards. Strawhecker Group, I believe, the payments consultancy group, says that businesses, U.S. businesses, the percentage of U.S. businesses surcharging is more than doubled in the past 5 years. So that's just directly correlated to the increased use of credit cards, and not just the increased use of credit cards, but also online transactions. So we've seen, digital payments and that whole sector explode. But really, online transactions is the highest cost transaction, especially for credit card payments. And so that's really increasing the cost of processing. And I think, everyone here noticed that in April, Visa and MasterCard raised their rates again this year. So, this is unlike any industry, a commodity type industry where there would be a lot of price pressure with competition. There just isn't, that's not how credit card processing operates, right? It's obfuscated. No one really knows what they're paying. Costs continue to increase. And surcharging is really a way for merchants to level the playing field. How long can they continue to incur these costs? We've seen, and this is a Worldpay survey, right? Most companies are saying, hey, this is a pretty big line item in my budget. And people are looking at those fees more closely now, especially with the economic climate. And most merchants are looking for a way to manage these costs. Very few of them can find the right solution, which is hopefully where we are able to, provide some value.
Yeah, so I'm curious about this, right? 63% of B2B merchants want an easy surcharging solution. What does easy mean to you, Suzanne, right? Because I know that there's compliancy and complexities around this.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, we talked about it. Obviously, it's pretty, it's pretty obvious what the motivation is to do something like surcharging, right? You can see that if you had an easy surcharging solution in place, you'd have the benefit of an immediate improvement in your net margin. Well, immediate improvement in net margin when you're talking about software is, almost, an oxymoron, right? But the payback period when you implement surcharging into your payment process is pretty immediate relative to most software solutions. So, with a solution that you can get live with little to no implementation cost in 30 days is pretty compelling.
Absolutely.
So, and stay with me here because I'm going to explain how you can make money. I know we have a lot of agents and ISOs on the phone, and how you can make money without impacting your margins with surcharging. So, quick background on how we deliver our solution. It's really, as a software company and as a software as a service model, it's really technology that allows us to automate the rules and complexity around surcharging. Our system operates much like a sales tax engine. So we can integrate wherever you accept credit cards, and there's no change to your credit card processing terms. We can customize the solution. So you can surcharge on account customers or customers that are paying with terms. You don't have to surcharge all of your customers. Many of our clients have white glove customers that they exclude from surcharging. We're compliant with InterPayments. The risk of surcharging shifts to us for the liability and the legality around surcharging. So, obviously with the rise in surcharging implementations also comes the rise of legal scrutiny, right? And when we take the risk off the table for the merchant and the agent, this is remarkably different from other solutions. And then really most important is we're aligned. We are a pure partner play. That is our strategy. We have chosen not to be an ISO or a processor. We want to partner with Paytrace and Paytrace's agents to sell our service, not to compete with you. So when I say other solutions compete with you or they're just simply not compliant. When I say that, I mean other ISOs are offering a bundled surcharge and processing solution.
And I really want to make an emphasis on this because I think this is very important to the model of what InterPayments does really well with Paytrace, but you are not a processor, right?
Right.
You do not do any of the processing. You do not take the mid. What I've seen with a lot of these other surcharging solutions that are considered kind of third-party technologies is that they are processors and they are essentially taking control of that merchant's ID, that MID. So that's a really big deal, right? The other thing that I want to mention on this is kind of a big theme that we've had around this webinar is this thing about compliance. Right. In the payment space, we're so used to things like PCI and making sure that merchants are compliant. I run into non-compliant surcharging in my personal life pretty often. It's frustrating for me as a consumer. What are, I guess, I don't want to say punishments, right? But what happens if a merchant isn't compliant, right? What could happen?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Sometimes you hear the word compliance and your eyes just glaze over, right? So, we have noticed a big crackdown. Visa sent out a memo that CC Sales Pro actually published part of it. They're conducting random audits now for merchants across the US for compliance. And their fines start at $25,000 per incident. So we see this as a pretty massive liability for merchants to take on. There is risk around not being compliant with your surcharging solution.
I think that number should scare anybody right now that has surcharging merchants, right? To maybe do a quick audit or review some of your merchants to make sure that they're doing things correctly.
Yeah, exactly. So how do we operate? We offer a pretty complex. We can handle up to date compliance and the complexity of surcharging by delivering it through an API. This API call is made at the point of sale, so it's pre-authorization on the credit card. And we are just simply taking 3 pieces of information: the zip code, the subtotal, and the BIN. So those 3 pieces of information tell us what type of credit card is being used. Can it be surcharged based on the zip code that it's in? What is the cost of acceptance for this card? So what fee can we pass on to the payer for this payment? And it's a pretty simple solution. It is implemented right at the point of sale, whatever sales channel you're using. And we also have a fully integrated solution called Paylink, where if you have your own custom solution, it's a simple API call. And if you want to use our Paylink solution, it's already integrated. And hopefully, Devin, are you with us?
Yes, I am here.
Devin he's had a busy day. And so our Paylink solution is our virtual terminal, our hosted payment page. And it has all of the elements that you would expect in a virtual terminal, being able to handle invoices, recurring payments, and obviously still keeping your pay trace level 2 and level 3 processing intact. So it'll have the same look and feel as what you're using now. And we won't sort of go through all the details of that, but I did want Devin to just quickly walk through some of the features that make this solution unique. One, that it's already integrated, so you can see how the surcharging works, but also kind of the hosted payment page and the secure payment links that come along with this. So with that, Devin, I'll let you go ahead and grab my screen.
All right, I believe it. Did I do that correctly?
Looks good.
Perfect. I'm not too familiar with Zoom, but luckily I was able to figure it out. So this is our out-of-the-box solution that we have currently integrated with Paytrace. This is our virtual terminal that we call Paylink. This is the homepage. To run through it really quickly, you have a summary of widgets at the top, and then, an individualized transaction list below. And then, of course, for transaction purposes, we do have the capability to take many different forms of payment, keyed in transactions. We do have an integration with one point of sale solution with Paytrace. So many different ways that your customers are able to take payments with surcharging through our virtual terminal with Paytrace. But what I wanted to run through quickly here is our hosted payment page. So this is the basic information you need to enter in to send to your customers. You can choose to fill this out or not by sending the link. You can make this a single-use hosted payment page, or what we have done for a few customers is this secure payment link can be attached to a website or your customers' payment portals for their customers to go in and pay based on an invoice that the merchant has sent them. But to walk through a single-use transaction, let me enter in, a random amount here. I will go ahead and pick a dummy customer. Put my information in, or this case will be the customer's information. Now, to receive level 2 and level 3 processing, you do need to enter in an invoice number and PO number, but you do not have to in our solution, for we do pre-populate that information if it is empty for you to still receive level 2 and level 3 processing. A unique thing about this payment page is this, what we call success URL. So this will reroute your customers once they have entered in their payment information and processed the payment to any type of URL that you'd like. We typically recommend to our merchants to reroute them back to their website. But for this case, I'll just reroute to paytrace.com. So if I've verified that the billing information is correct, the customer information is correct with the email, and the amount is correct, I will go ahead and click generate. And you will see that this link has pre-populated. Now, a few things can happen. I can directly copy and paste this to an email that I have already, created. Let's say if I want to add this to an invoice where the customer can reroute to this page, or I can send an email directly through our Paylink virtual terminal. So let me walk through that process. So I could go ahead down here below and click send. The email subject, and what you're seeing here is a preview of that email. The email subject line simply reads, Fred's company portal payment invoice, the email address it's going to, any additional content that I want to add. And you can see here that it is populating down below. And if everything looks good, the email is correct, the subject line and the additional information I have sent or entered, I will go ahead and click send. And then this will get sent directly to the customer. Waiting just a second for it to enter in to my email. So this is what it will look like from the customer's perspective. You can see that the subject line is simply the same that it read before. The new information and content I have added, and the template that we have built within our Paylink virtual terminal here. So this will get sent to the customer. The customer is, ready to pay. They'll go ahead and click this payment link, and it will reroute them to a secure payment page. Since I have entered in all their information in our Paylink virtual terminal, the only thing the customer has to enter in is their card information. So I'm gonna go ahead and enter in a test Visa card. And to show you that the invoice and PO number will pre-populate, I will go ahead and leave those blank. And then of course, if I want to enter in any description to the merchant saying, I'm paying your invoice, agree to terms and conditions, everything looks great, I'm ready to pay. This screen pops up because we have deemed this a surchargeable transaction. So to remain in compliance, the customer must be aware of the surcharge amount before the transaction is processed. They must be disclosed. We may apply a fee to cover all or part of our costs of accepting this credit card or this payment method. You can see the invoice number is pre-populated. The purchase number is pre-populated. The amount, the surcharge amount, and the total amount that will be billed to the customer. If they do not want to pay this surcharge, they can go ahead and click change payment type and enter in, a prepaid card, a debit card, any other non-surchargeable method. But if everything looks good, they're perfectly fine to pay this surcharge. They will go ahead and click process. And when it goes through, that success URL will reroute me to the success URL I have entered. And of course, for the demo purpose, I have entered paytrace.com. So that is essentially the walkthrough of our hosted payment page secure link. There's a few ways that we can walk through it, or a few ways that it'll work for the customer. And then the last thing I wanted to enter in here is, let's say I built this link, sent it to the customer, but I've entered in the wrong amount. I can go ahead and change this, update the link, and I do not have to send the customer a new link. It will already update in the link they currently have. So that's essentially the walkthrough of our hosted payment page, secure payment link. I will go ahead and pass it back to you, Suzanne.
And I'm going to just add a couple comments, Suzanne, while you're getting your presentation pulled back up. Devin, thank you. One, I really like the parity between your Paylink and the Paytrace payment link, right? For those of you that are familiar with Paytrace's solution, it looks almost identical. So for those of you that have merchants using our payment link, right, this is an easy transition if you want to add on surcharging. Right? Keep in mind that Paytrace's own payment link can do convenience fees, but we can't do compliant surcharging within the Paytrace direct payment link. So that's why I really like this solution, because it keeps that same transaction flow, but adds on that level of surcharging. One really quick thing that I wanted to also just comment on is Devin had mentioned level 2 and level 3 processing, which we hadn't touched on yet. But that's a really great benefit about pairing Paytrace with InterPayments, is that we're still supporting the level 2 and level 3. And you may be saying, well, why is that even important if we're just charging this to the customer? Well, it gives you a lot more flexibility and your merchant more flexibility to set the price, right? We don't have to set it at 4%. We can set it at 3.5 or 3% or 2%, right? So with reducing the interchange costs in the background, we add more flexibility in that side, or it can add some safety to your margins, right? By reducing the interchange, you can retain your margins built into that surcharge price. So Devin, thank you again. Really great demo.
Thanks, Devin. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for the point, Sam. I think that's really important for the folks here to understand. So I guess that leads us to, I want to share, a real life example of a Paytrace customer using the Paylink virtual terminal that you just saw. So this is a merchant in the building supply industry, and so they went live with Paylink. So there was no integration cost. They went live in 30 days. And they, in the first 90 days, they were able to recover more than $85,000 in credit card fees. So a pretty significant value to the customer. Again, this was a custom solution. They were surcharging only their on-account customers, right? So it's a $300 million company that was really just surcharging a segment of their customer base. That was, the on-account customers, they come in, they're carrying terms for them, they're paying with a credit card. It really was eating into their margins. And, I want to talk about how, what the shift is in the payment method. So they saw a 20% shift in credit card processing to a less expensive form of payment, like an e-check or an ACH. And what's important to point out about this is that this is still a net margin for you as the agent. So there's like incredible value to the merchant, and then still quite a lot of margin left for the agent too. So stay with me here as we kind of walk through that. Really, when you're talking about why this aligns with your outcomes as an agent, with InterPayments, our solution is going to provide obviously a lot of value for both. You as the agent, you still control the mid, and you create a new revenue stream. So you're delivering this service to your merchant to help them recover fees without adding any additional expense. And what that looks like, what does the math look like, right? So if you have $5,000 in margin on $5 million in credit card volume, with surcharging, you're not only maintaining that $5,000 margin, but you're adding a 15% revenue stream from InterPayments. So in this example, you go from $5,000 in revenue to $8,750. Now, by my math, that's about a 75% increase in your margin as an agent. So what the message here is that although surcharging can lead to a shift in your payment method, you're more than making up for it with the InterPayments revenue stream.
So,
go ahead.
I was going to say, if I can just jump in there, because this took me a minute to kind of wrap my head around. Right, because essentially what Suzanne's saying here is that, right, when we introduce surcharging to a merchant, right, their card revenue is going to kind of shift a little bit more towards other methods, right, debit, ACH, things like that. So we would think right, that our margin will decrease, our revenue will decrease as the agent on this account. But what this graph is really showing is that it's actually not the case, because while, yes, the amount goes down by about 20%, the card volume goes down by maybe 20%. Right, there's increased revenue because InterPayments pricing model actually has a 15% revenue share with the agent on that account. Right, so all the fees that they're recouping through their pricing model with surcharging, right, again, that's getting passed on to the customer, you're able to get a piece of that, and actually, right, your revenue increases pretty significantly, especially on this example.
And the reality is that the other surcharging solutions on the market are going to set your customer at a 3.5 fixed, and they're going to take over the merchant processing. So you end up with a whole lot of nothing in that example. So really important slide. We want to make sure that we spelled that out for you. Our learnings over the past year working with Paytrace is that there's all different kinds of customers. As a software company, when we sell direct, our pricing model was really targeted towards enterprise level companies. And we wanted to provide and create a way that had no implementation costs. So, really zero cost, zero commitment way to go live in 30 days. So using our Paylink virtual terminal, you have a one-time setup fee of $1,500, and then there's no contract. So no contract minimum and no contract term. So you can cancel anytime, and there's the solution's already integrated. So no out-of-pocket cost to the merchant, no out-of-pocket cost to the agent. We pass our fee that we charge for our service is 20%. So we make money when credit card fees are recovered. There's no API call charge or platform fee that we're charging, and we pass that fee onto the payer. So it's included in the surcharge fee. We've been pretty excited about this product because it's been really popular. If you see how this differs from what we usually do on the enterprise space, it's an API integration. So you're taking our API and integrating that. We have a contract minimum and a contract term. So our contracts usually are 12-month minimum, and then there is a monthly fee associated with that. So it takes a little bit longer to go live with a custom API integration. It's usually more in the 30 to 90 day time frame. So this is like a really simple out-of-the-box solution that we wanted to be able to offer to get people going quickly without a lot of risk.
I like this because I really feel like it addresses that data, that survey that you showed earlier, where 63% of merchants want just a simple, easy surcharging solution. And this, in my experience, it kind of checks all the boxes, right? You get up and running in that 30-day grace period. You've got kind of just an out-of-the-box solution, and it's, again, most of all, it's compliant. So you're only charging the cards that you're supposed to. You're charging within the range that you're allowed to, right? It keeps the merchant without having to worry about getting cracked down by the card brands.
Exactly. No, really good point. But so, we have some really good incentives in place for Q3. We are offering $150 cash cards for any leads that are passed to us, and a lead meaning a conversation with a merchant that would like to engage in surcharging. And for any deal that closes, based on the following volumes that are here, you can make up to $1,000 for any merchant, and that's in addition to the 15% revenue share. So some really good, there's a joint effort between Paytrace and InterPayments to, just to really be able to kickstart this InterPayments Go program and anyone that you might have that's interested in a surcharging solution.
So yeah, if you want to leave that slide up there really quick, Suzanne, because I really want to emphasize again, this is a really great promotion. It's literally $150 for a lead, just a qualified lead. $150 doesn't have to close, but then when you do get those closed deals and they are processing that volume, right? This is a really great promotion where you can make some money, right? Make some more, not that you're not making money on the account, but you can make some additional money and really tap into this awesome solution.
Yeah, good point. I think with a lot of the partners that we work with, once we get one conversation going, it's just nice to get a relationship going and to understand how the program works and to see that, we have a really complementary, really symbiotic type of relationship with a lot of the PayTrace partners and agents that we've started to work with. It's really getting that first pancake going. So what's next? Really the call to action here is to become an InterPayments affiliate partner. That signs you up for the 15% revenue share. And then we can start, getting referrals, keeping track of all the opportunities and also the spiffs that go along with that for Q3.
Absolutely. All right. Suzanne, I've been watching the magic of Kevin Hurd and Devin Foster answering a ton of questions in the Q&A box.
Awesome.
I think this is a great opportunity maybe to jump in there and respond to some of these if you're up for it.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. So kind of a functionality question to begin is I've seen a few questions about the flexibility of surcharging certain customers over other ones, right? And that's kind of a weird concept because when we hear about surcharging, usually we hear that you have to surcharge all cards, right? And just cards. Can you speak a little bit more about kind of the flexibility that InterPayments offers with that?
Sure. This is unique to us because of the way we deliver our solution as a software solution. Again, different than an ISO and a processor that doesn't have a lot of flexibility. They're just really fixing a rate at the surcharge. And once it's on, it's on. But because we're a software solution, we can still abide by the card brand rules, which is when a transaction is happening, if there is going to be a surcharge on the transaction, it has to happen for any card type that's being offered, if it's surchargeable. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to surcharge at the full amount for that customer, and it doesn't mean you have to surcharge that customer at all. So even in our virtual terminal, if you're processing a transaction for somebody over the phone, you can waive the surcharge. This is a VIP customer, or they complain about the surcharge, you still have full control and flexibility over how you want to offer this. We have customers that 25% of their revenue comes from one customer, and they just simply don't want to surcharge that customer. So we identify that customer and waive the surcharge, and that's all compliant.
Yeah. And I want to call this out because Jason brought up an example. He's like, are you saying that you can, discriminate based on age, gender, sex, race, etc.? No, you can't. That's illegal. You cannot. Don't do that. But, for business rules, if you do want to waive a fee or you want to choose to reduce a surcharge for, right, kind of a preferred customer, or if it's to help land a deal, right, absolutely, right. You have the flexibility to be able to go in there and really determine all the amounts that your customers are charged.
And we have customers that are processing transactions in the tens of thousands or even in the hundreds of thousands. And, we do see regularly $80,000, $90,000 transactions being surcharged, but we also see them being waived or a cap on that surcharge. Like our processing volume is low, but we have a high transaction size. So we don't want to share. We will share the cost of the credit card fee after a transaction gets to this level or this size, and we'll share the cost at 50%. So we have all of these business rules that are at your fingertips in the back office. You can turn them on or off whenever you'd like.
Love that flexibility. Again, it really just beats that flat fixed 3.5 rate, because for some people that just doesn't work. Okay. Kind of a technical question here from Richard regarding the registration process. Right. So for a merchant to surcharge and to be in compliance, they have to register with the card brands. When it comes to that registration process, how is that handled?
Yeah, so when you sign up to use InterPayment surcharging, we take you through the implementation process. So when I say it takes 30 days to go live with Paylink, it's because we're handling the 30-day card brand notifications that are required and also the acquirer notifications. So there is a waiting period to get started with with surcharging. So we handle that right up front. We make sure all of those rules and regulations are being taken care of. We're onboarding your merchant account processing rates and then testing transactions and training you on the virtual terminal. And then after the 30 days, you go live.
Perfect. So, right, InterPayments handles all that process. That's something that kind of takes it off your plate, makes it easy for the merchant, right? Because that can be a hassle, right? That's a lot more like work. So another value there. We kind of mentioned this earlier when you talked about, right, how does it stay compliant? How do we surcharge the right types of cards? So you mentioned that you do a bin lookup, right, on the card at the time of authorization to see if it's a surchargeable card or not. Just clarity, one audience member did ask, right, can a merchant add a surcharge to a card not present debit card?
You cannot.
Cannot. No, debit cards are not surchargeable. And that's one of the big things that I personally have run into as a consumer. And even in my role in the payment space, is that a lot of gateways are setting up merchants with surcharging, quote, surcharging, when it's really not, right? They're adding a percentage to debit cards, credit cards, all forms of card payment. And if Visa, MasterCard find that out, your merchant's getting fined. So we want to avoid that.
And that's what we see is a lot of conflating between basically a convenience fee and a service fee and a surcharge all rolled into one.
Yeah, exactly.
But you really can't, in the world of surcharging, you cannot surcharge a debit card or a prepaid card, and you cannot charge more than the cost of acceptance.
Exactly.
So you can't just do a straight 4% if you're paying 1.9.
Exactly. Cool. I'm just looking through this. We got a lot of questions right at us at one time. So again, I appreciate the guys in the background watching this. Great question from Greg. We're kind of positioning this around B2B, and you had a great example about an aggregate supplier, which is kind of building materials, concrete, things like that. What are some of the top industries that you see kind of consuming this technology?
Sure. We do focus quite a bit on the B2B space. In B2C, we see a lot of sort of single use type of our single source types of businesses. So something you can't price shop really easily. In the B2B space, we're looking at wholesalers, distributors, professional services, those types of organizations. Lawyers, so big law firms, insurance companies, where you can't really go somewhere else. I mean, you have to utilities, lots of wholesalers, distributors, building supply companies.
Gotcha. So very much aligned with kind of the merchants that we see here using PayTrace. I want to add a really great market is kind of those non-card acceptors that I'm sure all of you have run into at some point or another, where they say, well, cards are too expensive. Right? We don't want to incur a lot of these fees. That's why we only do paper checks or ACH. This is a great opportunity to go back to them and say, hey, right, your customers, they prefer to pay by card, right? They get rewards. They get to kind of float the transaction to finance that out and pay it off later. But we understand that you don't want to incur those fees. Now you have a solution where you can still allow them to pay by card, but they're going to get the fees passed on to them. And for some, that's going to be great. So it opens up new channels for that merchant to accept new forms of payment, hopefully to expedite some of their receivables. Right. So you can go back and have some of those conversations on maybe some of those lost opportunities. All right. How are we doing in here? Any security? Greg's asking about security features that might be built into either solutions. Can you speak to anything there?
Well, I mean, there's different aspects to security, right? So what our API is not handling is this isn't PCI information, right? The bin number, the zip code, and the subtotal are not PCI. We are an ISO compliant company. So the security and what we're doing, even though we're not handling PCI information, is we're still covered with ISO compliance.
Yeah.
The security in terms of the transaction and your flow of funds and data is untouched by us. We are simply making a call on the front end of the transaction before the transaction is processed to see if it can be processed.
Perfect. And I'll add to that, right? Because Paytrace is the gateway. We have some of our security tools built in there, like the AVS, auto void tools, CSC. We've got the fraud filters that are built in there. So because Paytrace is the gateway on this, InterPayments is the technology stack for surcharging, right? It all kind of works together to make sure that merchants are avoiding those fraudulent transactions still on the gateway side, but they're still getting priced out correctly and compliantly on the surcharging side. So,
Maureen, or somebody is asking a question about restrictions in Colorado.
Sure.
And Colorado was sort of, they really came out with their rules to go live at the beginning of July. And it's an interesting, it's kind of confusing from the standpoint that you're either in Colorado, you are either surcharging the full amount, the full cost of acceptance of that card. If you were to say, I really don't want to surcharge at the full cost of acceptance for every card, maybe, my rates are 3.2%, but I'm going to surcharge at 3% or 20% less or 50% less. In Colorado, they won't let you do that. You're either at the full amount, the full dynamic surcharge on that card, or it's capped at 2%. It's not in between. And I'm not sure what they were trying to accomplish there, but you sort of, there's a 2% cap unless you're surcharging at the full amount.
Weird. But you know that, which is a good thing, right? So if you do run into those Colorado merchants, customers, you've got that built in. Cool.
Yep.
Well, I think a lot of these other questions that we have are kind of geared towards specific use cases. So maybe we can take those offline. I do want to reiterate, right? The email contact that we want you to reach out to is partners@interpayments.com. Let them know that you saw the webinar. Give us your feedback. We'd love to hear about that. A couple things I just want to reiterate that we talked about on this, right? This is an awesome surcharging solution that is compliant and super easy to set up. Right now, kind of to date this video, in Q3 of 2022, we are doing a spiff promotion for any qualified leads and closed deals where you can make a little extra money. And I think something that's different from the last time that we had InterPayments as a guest is now there is a revenue share in place. So, right, you get to keep all of the processing volume, right? You keep the mid, so you get all the normal processing volume that you set up with a merchant. On top of that, you also get a revenue share from InterPayments, right? Off of the actual InterPayments revenue that goes into that. So you have the ability to increase your margins on that. So a lot of really great incentives to get out there and start talking to some merchants now and getting those on board. And so far, I've heard some really great feedback. I just want to call that out from kind of a personal perspective. We've had a handful of merchants using InterPayments this year, right? We had that case study and it's going really well. So Suzanne, kudos, Devin, kudos to you guys, you and your team for putting together a really, really fantastic solution.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I know it's kind of a confusing offering. You're coming to us, InterPayments, to sign up for the revenue share because the customer is actually signing up with InterPayments. So this is in partnership with Paytrace, but in order for us to accept liability and activate the surcharging, it is coming. The deal is the paper is directly with InterPayments. So please reach out to us with any questions. We're happy to talk to you, even if it's just to get some more information. So partners@interpayments.com is the email address.
So I'm launching one final poll as we wrap up here. If you would like to speak to anybody at InterPayments, if you have opportunities or you want some more information and you want us to connect you, please answer yes on this poll, or just if you don't, just say no, that's cool. We'll keep you in mind for some later opportunities. But we want to help facilitate this. We want to make this process implementation as smooth as possible. So just let us know if you want to get connected. As we're wrapping up here, I do want to just thank you, Suzanne, Devin, wonderful presentation. Again, really excited for this partnership and the value that you bring to merchants, and looking forward to working with you guys more here in the future.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us.
All right. Team, everybody, thank you again for joining this. This will be on our YouTube channel. If you're watching this live, we'll have some good recordings, some follow-up information coming up out here probably in the next week or so. So check your email, check your inbox, and hope to see you out here on the next webinar. Take care.